Good day to you. How's your day going? Mine's going pretty well. I just want to check my Facebook here a minute, if you don't mind. Let's see what's going on my social media platform. Let's see, Rob. Your memories on Facebook. Well, there's a photo of my wife before she started dyeing her hair blonde, so I know that this is an old photo, and it takes me back in time. Interesting. Okay. Oh, here's a student of mine who graduated last year, and she's got a job at Eyewitness News, WBRE, WYOU. She's a broadcaster. That's a job in her field. I'm so glad to see that. Next up, Norton Gaming. Well, that's interesting. I'm not a gamer, but I was reading about gaming for the class this morning, and this is a nutshell of the social media world that we are living in. What I've just shown you on my Facebook, and you've got your own feeds also bringing into your life various dimensions of social media and making your lives complete. Most people are on social media, not everybody. Of course, some people have gotten rid of it because of the stress involved and the having to live up to others' expectations and always perceiving that everybody else is having the greatest time in the world. But for the most part, social media dominate our lives on a daily basis. In many circumstances, social media are the first thing you do when you get up in the morning and the last thing you do before you go to bed. So we're taking on this next chapter now, chapter 10, and it's going to include both social media and video games, video gaming. And of course, many of you in this class will be much greater experts at these subjects than me because this is the world that you've grown up in. So let's continue on now with our introduction. I do want to make the point that social media are transforming time and space in the way that we communicate, transforming time and space. I just showed you an example of that. I went back in time. And I was with my wife 7 years ago by looking at that Facebook photo, that the element of time has been transformed. We can go back in time. And even on Facebook and other social media platforms, there are these formulas that go around where you can plug in various factors about yourself and it will show you what you look like at the age of 60. That's going forward in time. So time is transformed and space is transformed as well. I've got friends on Facebook that they're not in the same town as me. They're in different locations. So space is crossed over because we can communicate on Facebook. Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. We're going to talk about all of them today. They are all social networks, right? Even the film about Facebook was called The Social Network. And what is a social network? It connects individuals and groups on a platform. The platform being basically the software for whatever social media platform you're using. And key marks of a social network include user-generated content. That means it's not up to the broadcasters like in the old days, the legacy media where everything's coming to the audience. The audience is creating the content on social media. Social media, the social network includes comments. That means other people who are not part of the original two people discussing anything, other people can comment on. So there's third-party comments. Tagging goes on as well. You can pick out an individual person and tag them specifically. That goes on in a social network. And social networking, that means accepting friends for some of those platforms like Instagram and Facebook, which are walled gardens, so to speak. You have to get into them by permission, whereas other platforms like Twitter, they're open source. Anybody can read anybody's tweet and you can tweet at anybody. But social networking is about getting together with people. And then customization is the last dimension. Customization means you can set up a profile. You can block certain people from seeing your content. That's customization. Let's talk about the most popular social network. I was surprised to see this myself. It's actually YouTube. YouTube is more popular in terms of hits than Facebook. It was founded by three friends who used to work for Elon Musk's PayPal company. And they found out one night when they were partying, they wanted to share videos with each other, that it was hard to do. You could look at somebody's phone, but you couldn't send it through email. The videos kept getting sent back because they were occupying too much memory. So they decided to invent YouTube. And then YouTube was bought by Google. And it is the most popular social media network. We're even using it for this class, right? I'm using it for my instructor videos. That's for my YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that's for a class. I don't know whether it's going to grow or not from here, but this is YouTube, the largest social network. Next up is Facebook. Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, you may know if you've seen the film, The Social Connection, The Social Network, sorry. Zuckerberg created Facebook originally as an instant messaging service in his dad's dentist office so that the dentist didn't have to go out to the front office and collect the patients. They could just call for them to come back. And so that's how he developed it, and he refined it at Harvard University. And most recently, Facebook has got 2.5 billion people across the world. 2.5 billion people. It is a walled garden. You have to accept friends' requests for them to get access to your information. And inside of the garden, you can play. You can play, share photos, play games, post videos, make comments, get political if you want. That's why it's called a walled garden. Advertisers love Facebook because they can find exactly the kind of people that they're looking for. I mean, this ad on my Facebook right now that's directing me towards video gaming, they think I'm interested in video gaming because I was doing a lot of Googling of it this morning to prepare for class. I'm not. So in this case, they've got it wrong. They think they found a video gaming person with their advertising, but for the most part, advertising is very well targeted because you know so much about the people who are using Facebook for the reasons that I stated last class, because you're supplying big data every time you're going on and posting a photo. Facebook knows all about what your likes and interests are. And Facebook basically tracks where you go on the web through your IP address. You know, for so many different services, you have the option, do you want to sign in to Facebook? You want to sign in through Facebook? You know, I went to purchase an airline ticket. You want to sign in through Facebook? Sure, it's easier. Well, now Facebook knows exactly where I'm flying and what company I bought it from, etc. That's how that big data system works. Next up is Instagram. It's probably more popular amongst this class than Facebook. If you're like my other students, Instagram is more popular than Facebook. It's a photo sharing site. The co-founders were Mike Krieger and Kevin Systrom. And since Instagram was founded, it hasn't changed that much, but some of the fundamental changes include that you have full frames for photos now, whereas before they were square, and video has been added to Instagram, and filters that people love to play with to make themselves look better and make shots look more mysterious, etc. Instagram was bought by Facebook in the year 2012, just about 10 years ago. And right now, Instagram is accounting for about 30% of Facebook's advertising revenue. So it's a big part of the business model, 30% of the revenue coming from Instagram. Next up is Snapchat. Snapchat is, or Snap, as it's called, is enormously popular among young people, 18 to 20. But once you hit that age range, 20 and above, the audience falls off for Snapchat. Very, very popular, but it's had a hard time making money, Snapchat. Part of the reason is it's harder for those who don't use it several times a day to use it. And the other part is that the whole premise of Snapchat is you have auto disappearing messages and photos. They just go away after a temporary period of time. I mean, you can screenshot them and save them, but the idea is the content you're providing is temporary, so nobody's really going to remember it the next day. Once again, playing with the concept of time. But that also makes it difficult for advertisers to commit to an auto disappearing message, right? All right, next up is the platform Twitter. Twitter was developed by 3 college dropouts. You've got Evan Williams, Jack Dorsey, and a person named Biz Stone, Stone. It's a micro-blogging network. That's what Twitter is. It has a confined character limit. It used to be 140 characters. Now it's 280 characters. And it opened up two-way communication between businesses and customers, between celebrities and fans of celebrities, between sports stars and others. A lot of news gets announced through Twitter. It's a very big social media platform, but like Snapchat, it's had a hard time making money. Twitter has. Then we've got TikTok. TikTok is the comedian's social network. It's short videos are shared all the time, usually funny. What makes TikTok separate from these other companies, though, it's a Chinese company. It's owned by the Chinese, and that company has a history of censorship. But TikTok is very aggressive. It actually advertises on Snapchat and YouTube. Recently, TikTok was fined by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, for collecting information on children that it wasn't allowed to collect. That's big data, right? All right, so that's all the platforms we're going to talk about. Unfortunately, the book does not talk about WhatsApp, which I'm very, very surprised to see. WhatsApp, that platform is used all all over South America and Central America for sure. If you want to deal with a business, there's no phone number anymore for a lot of South American and Central American companies. You have to contact the business through WhatsApp. Very interesting, that service. Used very much internationally because all you need is wireless and then you can send messages. So it's good for Samsung phone owners. All right, moving on now, let's talk about the development of video games. We're going to move on to video games. Video gaming is all over the place. It used to be when I was in college, something that mainly males did. And now you can see females in dorm rooms full of all kinds of people playing video games, gamers. So let's talk about video gaming. And really what's behind all of this was a chase to make the computer like real life, to make a computer come to life. That's the chase behind this. And one of the first people to establish video games was the British mathematician. His name was Alan Turing, Turing. And he was on that quest. He was on that quest to see if he could come up with a computer which could match a human's intelligence. And it was given his last name, this test. It was called the Turing test, to see whether a computer could outsmart a human being. And the program he wrote was for the game chess. He wanted to write a software program for chess, and the computer would play chess. He also wrote a game called tennis. He didn't write this game, but a video game was written during this time period, in 1950s, actually, 1958. Supposedly the first video game. It was a very primitive form of playing tennis. And then another big date in the history of the development of video gaming was 1961. In 1961, a bunch of MIT students, those are Massachusetts Institute of Technology students, they developed a game called Space War. So that was also one of the first video games. But video games weren't popularized until Atari comes along. So Atari was founded by someone named Nolan Bushnell. Nolan Bushnell founded Atari. And his first game that he wrote was Pong. It was like a version of that tennis game. I remember that Pong. It had paddles on the side. It was all black and white. And you could slide the paddle up and down while the ball was bouncing back and forth. And then it started bouncing faster and faster and faster. That was Pong. Most video games, though, at this time were not located in homes with home consoles. No, they were in arcades. Arcades down the shore. Arcades in malls. A big room with a lot of video games inside of them. That all changed, though, because Atari launched the home video game console market. It did that with the Atari 2600, and the game that it launched was Tank. Like other businesses, though, small businesses, including YouTube, which we've discussed today, Atari got bought out by the Warner Company, a big legacy media company. Let's talk about the importance of arcades. We don't see them so much anymore because people can play at home and on their computers, but in malls, that was the place where young people gathered around, was the arcade. It was a place for socializing, for flirting, for eating, for practicing skills, for escaping from home. The arcade, in essence, played a very big role, a vital role, in young people's daily lives. And arcades came along quickly because of the microprocessor. The microprocessor was invented, and this made games much more sophisticated, much better to look at. The graphics were brighter, sharper, the action was much better. That's all because of the microprocessor. And arcades were so big because of the microprocessor that in 1981 they brought in $900 million in quarters. Yeah, that's how you would play arcades. You put a quarter in. $900 million in quarters brought in through arcades in 1981. And guidebooks came out to try and show people how to beat the games that they were playing. So this whole culture that's growing out. And as I said, mostly males were playing video arcade games until Pac-Man came out. When Pac-Man came out, it broke through to women, and you had a female Pac-Man, even though man isn't a word that's used there. And so this is broadening video gaming, making it accessible to more parts of the population. So because the arcades were doing really well, the home console market was not doing well, but that changed with Nintendo. Nintendo revived the home console market. It was a 100-year-old company at the time. It's not a new company. And it came up with the Nintendo Entertainment System, which included some favorites that still are around today, Mario and Super Mario, Donkey Kong, The Legend of Zelda. This company, Nintendo, also had competition. It had competition from the Sega company. And in response, Nintendo developed Game Boy. We had a couple Game Boys in our household when our kids were young. A tiny little miniature game that you can play on. Let's talk now about Sony PlayStation and Microsoft Xbox. The Sony PS, or PlayStation, was the first video game console to use 3D graphics. So video games were advanced with this technology because now you have that third dimension to playing. It's not like a flat screen that you're playing on. Sony came up with the PlayStation 5 for that, still very popular. PlayStation 5 is the most recent version. Microsoft's Xbox, in the meantime, that was going after an older audience with sports and first-person shooter games. The Xbox is built for online play as well, which is different from its predecessors. And then Nintendo, to match the online play of Xbox, came out with the Wii system and its unique method of waving your arm to play tennis, for example, if that's the game that you're playing on Wii. Both of those systems gave access to cable television as well, so we're starting to see video gaming opening up other forms of mass media. There have been a lot of conflicts with video games, a lot of conflicts about the content and also about the way that video games are used. The game Death Race, one of the original violent video games, it upset critics because it was all about running over people with cars, and when you run them over, they turn into tombstones. Atari had a conflict with its rape theme game, Custer's Revenge. Mortal Kombat was controversial because of its outrageous violence. And because of all of these criticisms, not the least of which is young people spending so much time on video gaming, that certainly was taking place in my household, and I see it with a lot of families. And you wonder about whether the social skills that you need to communicate with others are being hindered there by staring at a computer screen all day long, whether that reality becomes the reality that you expect when you are not playing video games, and a reality that's over the top with excitement and stimuli. Leaving aside those questions for the moment, the video game industry decided to come up with its own rating system. So we have a rating system right now. Perhaps the most outrageous video game for some, at least critics, is Grand Theft Auto, because players have the freedom to go through any path in a city and commit whatever crimes they want to. Now let's move on to a gentler side of gaming. We're going to talk about Pokemon. Pokemon, developed in Japan, is seen as a wholesome, friendly, combat-based game. It was launched in 1996, and it was augmented or added to, if you know that word, with reality Pokemon, where people were going all over the world chasing them on their phones. And Starbucks and Sprint took advantage of this phenomenon to advertise on Pokemon. So Pokemon also coming into the mix here as we're talking about video gaming. Let's talk about video games as mass consumption, because this is a class about mass media, and we're really making a case here that video games are a form of mass media. And consoles, the home console, they're really media content delivery devices. They're not gaming consoles, they're media content gaming devices. In fact, Xbox is actually pitched as a general purpose entertainment hub. That's how Xbox is pitched. And video games have stars. They have stars just like in the movies, just like on TV, just like in film, video game. Mario is a superstar. So we've got stars that are in video games, and video games are a place for advertisers. Advertisers have found they have access to an audience that they want to get to. And players communicate when they're on video. They're speaking with each other. They've got their headsets on, and people are located all over the world, bringing people together. It's a mass consumption. And some video games are actually even more popular than movies in terms of downloads, in terms of views, in terms of audience participation. So for sure, video games are mass consumption. Next up is the idea that video games are also a spectator sport. You know that from PewDiePie, spectator sport, watching somebody else commentating on playing their video games. One of the most popular events in video gaming history was that fish named Grayson who was playing a Pokemon game, and that went viral all over the world. Consoles from Sony and Microsoft, they both stream on Twitch, which was purchased by Amazon. And the Battle Royale games, as they are known, are extremely popular for streaming, the most important of which is Fortnite. Celebrities have gotten into the action as well. Drake and Tyler Blevins, a gamer, they set a record for streaming live with other people watching them. We're talking about the spectator sport of video gaming. ESPN shows video gaming competition. competitions. Here at ESU, we host esports competitions, and we're opening up a really big video gaming area in the not too distant future that's going to be used, by the way, as a way to recruit students to campus. They'll go through that area and it will be part of the allure of ESU. At least that's what the planners are hoping. Video games in contemporary culture, they're used for meetings, they're used for weddings, they're used for concerts. You can read about it in the book. You probably already know about it. Video games are not just gaming anymore. So now we're going to finish up with diversity and representation in video games. And we can say that much like other media, video games suffer from, unfortunately, an over-representation of characters who are white, male, and heterosexual. In fact, of the two groups that are talked about in the chapter as using video games or playing video games the most, those two groups are LGBTQ people. They play more than non-LGBTQ people. They play video games. And Asians tend to play more video games than other ethnicities, yet both of them are underrepresented in the content of video games themselves. Although we can say there are exceptions, Xbox's Saints Row, for example, allows for a wide range of body diversity when you're selecting your characters. Nevertheless, whatever kind of a world it is surely a video gaming world today. Have a great day.